Hello everyone, this is Gilmer and this is my second episode of Let's Play to End All Wars. Okay, in my last video we had just chosen our war plans and off screen I actually executed my turn. And that's all that happens on the first turn is you choose which war plan you want to follow during the war and then you execute the turn. Now I haven't recorded in a couple of days because I keep having trouble with my videos and it gets a little frustrating after a while. And actually I've tried to do 2 videos this morning already and I still can't get it to work exactly right. It will record for 2 or 3 minutes and then it will stop for no apparent reason. So I hope this one actually works. Let's take a look at the war plans. Okay, first message is Serbia rejects Austrian ultimatum, which pretty much starts the war, and that's just an event of a historical flavor event that tells you what happened. Serbia in the previous turn, I mentioned how Serbia in Sarajevo, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand was executed, or not executed, but assassinated, and so that gave Austria the opening to make demands of Serbia, and Serbia accepted 8 of 9, but they rejected 1, and so Austria declared war. Then Russia declared war on Austria, then Germany declared war on Russia, and then France declared war on Germany. And so this is just a flavor event, basically. So the German war plan, they decided to attack Russia uh, more so than attacking France. They kind of put the Western Front on hold while they attack into Russia. And what this has done is actually caused Great Britain to not join the war immediately, because historically the reason Great Britain joined the war was because Germany attacked into Belgium, and Great Britain had pretty much promised Belgium if Germany attacked them that they would join the war on their side. So the Germans didn't attack Belgium, so Great Britain is sitting on the sidelines for now. The Austrian Empire took the Conrad plan, which is a historical option, which means they're going to fight Serbia and then also fight Russia, but they're going to try to kick Germany out of the war first. Let's see how that works. French war plan. Plan 19. The French, that's who I am. I'm playing Western Entente. This is my war plan. This is what I chose. And the background on this was this plan calls for an offensive against Germany, attempting to flank any German attempt to invade Belgium by sending 3 armies through Luxembourg and the Ardennes. Well, as I just mentioned, Germany did not attack Belgium. But even so, I like this plan because it bypasses Germany's fortresses that are on the France-Germany border. So I'm not attacking across this river into the face of their forts. So what I'll do is I will attack into Luxembourg, which the city in Luxembourg is it's not defended very strongly. It has no fortifications. There's not a fort or anything like that. So I expect to capture that fairly quickly. And then it opens up the path into behind these fortresses and a lot of these major cities or strategic cities that I can take. Very nice. And then the Russian war plan is the Polska plan. They mass their forces in what is now known as Poland. And at the start of World War I, there was no country called Poland. It had been partitioned maybe about 100 and something years before, and so part of Poland Russia owned, part of Poland Prussia owned or Germany owned, and part of Poland Austria owned. And so when it says Russia masses its forces for an invasion into Silesia and Galicia from deep within Polish territory, that basically means they're massing their forces on their western front. This is called the Eastern Front, but it's Russia's western border. So that's what they're doing, which is fine. I don't mind doing that. And then the rest of these messages just explain how Great Britain has shifted 5% alignment towards the Entente, which means they're moving closer and closer to joining the war. And with that said, let's go take a look at the diplomat area. The diplomat area is where you conduct all diplomacy. It has a listing of flags up here. The top row are the major participants of the war at the beginning of hostilities. There's France, that's me. Russia, Eastern Entente, which we do not play the Eastern Entente, we just play the Western Entente. I could have chosen the Eastern Entente, but I chose Western Entente. And then the Central Powers, which is Germany and Austria. The second row are the major powers that have not decided to join the war yet. Great Britain is at alignment of 86%, which means they are very close to joining. They just jumped 5% in one turn. I expect them to join within 2 or 3 turns. The United States, they are aligned towards the Central Powers by 87%. Now you say, well, how can that be? Because the USA joined the Western Entente. At the outbreak of hostilities, there were a lot of German immigrants in the USA, so there were a lot of strong pro-Central Power sentiments with these German immigrants, and that's why you see that. And also, there was a strong isolationist background of the USA, so they didn't even want to get involved in, so they didn't want the Western Entente to pull them into any European war. Eventually, obviously, historically, the USA did join the war. The Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire at this time is very weak. It has a lot of land, but their troops are not very good. They don't have a lot of troops, but they're still considered a major power because they're a lot more powerful than any of the minor powers. But even so, Ottoman Empire has not joined the Central Powers, and historically they joined the Central Powers. So I expect them to join the Central Powers at some point. And there are a couple of political options that can be played early in the game that either pulls them closer to the Central Powers or pulls them closer to the Entente. I'm not going to fight them going into the Central Powers because I don't think that the Ottoman Empire does such a good, is such a big deal that letting them go to the Central Powers is not a catastrophe. The last one is Italy, and I will definitely work on them at some point to try to get them into the Western Entente. They historically did join the Western Entente, and Italy has a lot of troops and a lot of formations that you can build, so they're very powerful. They're not quite, I would say they're on the same level as Austria, and if you can get Italy, and its northern border is Austria, so that is kind of a counterweight to Austria that can kind of help out the Serbian area of combat in those areas and take a little pressure off of them if you can get Italy into the Western Entente fairly quickly so that they can start attacking north into Austria. So I will work on them fairly quickly. Actually, as soon as I can get I keep saying West. As soon as I can get Great Britain into the Western Entente, I will start on Italy next because they'll be the next big domino to fall to the Western Entente and let them join the Western Entente so I can open up another front almost like a a third front on the Central Powers, which will be pretty nice. And also, France and Italy have a common border, so as soon as Italy joins the war, I can start shuttling French troops into Italy and allow them to be used in northern attacks in Austria as well. So it's very nice. The last 5 rows are the minor powers. And the reason they're called minor powers is that their militaries at this point are not very strong, and so they're considered minor powers for that reason. I have sent some minor diplomats to some of these. One of them is Japan. Japan historically joined the Western Entente, and they're needed to kind of be my power in the Pacific, because there are several strategic colonies in the Pacific that I can use them to take from the Central Powers. So that's why I'm trying to get them in fairly quickly. Arabia, I have sent a minor diplomat to Arabia because historically Arabia rebelled. It was part of the Ottoman Empire, and when they rebelled, it siphoned some of the troops of Turkey down south into the Middle East, so that they kind of tied them down a little bit. So they had their hands full almost with Arabia actually rebelling, especially with T.E. Lawrence of Arabia down there, and some of the British troops coming up from Egypt. And actually, the British troops with the Arabian troops took a fairly good amount of the Middle East from Ottoman Empire, so much so that after World War One, the Ottoman Empire was basically broken up, and the Middle East was taken from them by France and Great Britain. They incorporated them kind of into their empire in the sense that they had, I think, military governors after World War One in these areas, and they partitioned them off a little bit, with Great Britain controlling areas like current day Israel and Jordan, I think, and then France controlled what was current day Iran / Iraq. So that area has been kind of in upheaval for really thousands of years, let alone hundreds of years. So this is the diplomacy area of the map, and what you can do is you can press F12, and it brings up a list of decisions you can play on the diplomacy area, or also alternatively that you can play on the map. And some of these are fairly straightforward, and some of them take a little explanation. Declaration of war, obviously, if you place this card on somebody. If I place this on Mexico, then I would be at war with Mexico. I don't do it because I don't have any desire to attack Mexico, but it's there if you need it. Bombard fortifications. If you're in an enemy territory and you're sieging a fort, you can play this card and it'll help your siege go a little bit more effectively. Build munitions factories. If you know a little bit about World War One, you know that the armies were, what made armies strong were artillery. It was the big thing for land forces to have at the beginning of the war. Any army that had medium and heavy artillery, more of it, they generally had the advantage. And during World War One, Germany and France used artillery so much that they ran low on ammunition. Well, this card, if you build Munitions Factory, it keeps you supplied with ammunition for your artillery. New generals, what you do with this card is you actually take it and play it right directly on the flag of your country, which in my case is France. And what it does is the very next turn, it will unlock 6 generals that will appear in Paris. So that is a very nice way of increasing your general pool. It's very random. I don't get to choose which of these generals that I want. It's a random die roll that decides who I get and who I do not get. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Obviously, the very top one, Michel Joseph Menery, is a pretty good general with a very high strategic rating, which is strategic, offensive, defenses. So he has a 4 for strategic rating, which is a very good number. I don't necessarily get him the first time. I probably will. I think it's a weighted average, and I think the better generals have a higher percentage chance of joining, but I don't know that for a fact. So anyway, that's another thing that you can do. Concessions. It helps your country stay in the war, basically. It's not something I use very often, but I do use it some. Change government. Some countries change governments, fairly quickly, I guess, compared to others. The USA has a change, an election every 4 years, but in Great Britain, I believe they have a parliamentary system, which I don't know exactly how their elections work, but in some countries with parliamentary governments, they can have elections fairly quickly within 1 year or so. I think Israel just had an election, and Great Britain actually just had their elections, and I don't know if that's set for Great Britain or not, but I know that in Israel, they actually called for an election to see if their coalition running the country would change or not. So it can be you know random as to when they have elections. State print state funds. If I play this card on my flag, the next turn I will get a lot more state funds than just what my regions are producing. And then unlock fort guns. That is, I have fortresses that have emplaced heavy artillery that are fixed positions, and if I play this unlock fort guns on those fortresses, I can move those artilleries into armies and actually move them around into battles with me. So that is a very quick look at diplomacy. This screen is the research screen until research actually opens up. We're basically all at level 1 of every research level. So if you look at the Western Entente, infantry research, artillery research, chemical warfare research, aviation research, tank research, and then convoy and anti-submarine research. And you can kind of mouse over all of these and look at them and see what advantages each one gets for you. Another thing that I probably should mention is the